Lately, with the release of the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, I have seen an increased number of people absolutely dunking on the original PS1 Resident Evil games, claiming that they are outdated, clunky, and that the fixed camera angles and tank controls ruin the game. This rhetoric that has been spreading is something that I absolutely disagree with, and in this video I will elaborate why. So before we begin, I will explain what I mean when I say fixed camera angles and tank controls. Simply put, fixed camera angles mean that the camera is in a fixed position and cannot be influenced by the player, as opposed to the more commonly used third-person camera that can be influenced by the player. And tank controls refer to the player character controlling like a tank. I will elaborate on that when we get to that section, but without further ado, let's begin. So first I will tackle the fixed camera angles. I see many people claiming that they ruin the game because they obstruct your view and are limiting. While yes, in a technical sense they are limiting in that you do not have the ability to look around while playing, but this does not mean you are completely hindered, because the developers expertly crafted every single frame so that the player has all the information they may need. The developers highlight enemies, items, or points of interest. There are also certain scares that you cannot do in an over-the-shoulder perspective. For example, the first liquor encounter in the original Resident Evil 2. Notice how after you get a glimpse of it through the window, the next shot immediately after makes it seem like something is watching you through the window. This will not be possible with an over-the-shoulder perspective, as seen with the RE2 remake. Also notice how when you're walking down the hallway, the liquor is obstructed from your view on purpose, so even though you kinda know it's there, but the blood on the ground, but you can't see it, thus creating tension through just camera angles and fear of the unknown. So as you can see, the fixed camera goes a long way in presenting the tone and atmosphere of these games. There are many other moments like this, for example, Mr. X appearing in the martial arts security cam footage, and the zombie's arms reaching through the gate. But besides just scares, the backgrounds are an example of masterclass artistry. The developers really cared about what they were making, and it shows. Just look at some of the shots from the classic RE games. Now, I understand that fixed camera angles aren't everyone's cup of tea, but just because it's not for you does not mean that they are bad. The next point of contention I see are the tank controls. I have seen people say that it's an awful control scheme and that it is archaic. However, this is simply not true. The tank controls are there to compensate for the fixed camera angles, because with a more traditional control scheme, the constantly changing camera angles would disorient the player, as seen with the alternate control scheme in the Resident Evil 1 remaster. Not only does it look really goofy, but you would have to constantly readjust the analog stick every time a camera angle would change. The tank controls work to remedy this by simplifying it so that the control is respective to where the character is facing. Allow me to explain. Holding forward or up on the analog stick makes the character go forward in the direction they are facing, no matter what angle the camera is in. In these next few clips, I am simply going to be holding forward/up so that you guys can get a visual representation of what I mean. As you can see, holding forward still makes the character go forward, even though there are a lot of camera shifts. It's kind of like you're playing in first person, because forward always goes forward and back is always back from their perspective. Once you understand the fundamentals, the control scheme is actually easy to understand and get used to. As with the fixed camera angles, yes, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but that does not mean they are bad. They were a solution to the problem that a fixed camera angle presented. Games like Silent Hill also use tank controls, so yes, they do serve a purpose and they are not only there to hinder the player. All you gotta do is get used to them, like all control schemes in video games. Now, I need to address something. Liking these games does not mean I am blinded by nostalgia. I have seen countless discussions end abruptly because someone decided that since the person prefers the originals to the remakes, that somehow that means that they are blinded by nostalgia and that their argument is moot. This is illogical and quite frankly a little ridiculous. Myself and many other people have legitimate issues with the over-the-shoulder remakes, and I have seen plenty discuss it in a sound and logical manner. But a lot of people take offense to this for some reason and claim that they are just blinded by nostalgia, as if the points me and other fans of the original titles are making are all based off some rose-tinted version of these games. This is simply not true, as I have hopefully explained somewhat earlier. These games were deliberately made this way because that's the experience the devs wanted to make. A tense and atmospheric horror game that uses fixed camera angles to present tone, mood, and tension. The classic Resident Evil titles are legendary survival horror games that I believe any fan of horror should play. The fixed camera angle, tank controls, and labyrinthian level design all come together to create an experience that is unforgettable. It is sad to see that these games' legacies are being erased and forgotten, and that they are being replaced by inferior remakes that take out a lot of the soul and passion the original games had. I don't want to come off as rude, but quite frankly, while the Resident Evil 2 remake being a great game, it still has nothing on the original game, and Resident Evil 3 remake is a complete letdown and disappointment. But the saddening thing about this is that those remakes are what the general audiences will see as the definitive experience because they're prettier and more modern. And that's disheartening because the original PS1 classics are undoubtedly great games, whose legacies are being washed away due to people not wanting to go back and play the originals because of their age and presentation. These games mean a lot to me, as they have shaped what I liked in horror. Playing these games are what led me to other survival horror games such as Dead Space, Silent Hill, and The Evil Within. These games are getting unfairly judged, and I just had to address some of the criticisms, because I feel like these arguments are being made are not well researched and are being made out of spite for the people who prefer the original games.